Yeah. Woo! Welcome, everybody. Today is a most glorious occasion. It is our big poetry launch party for Kim Ports Parsons. Beautiful, beautiful collection, the Mayapple Forest. And you have arrived today at Sandy and Kim's big poetry launch party. I'm your host and MC for today, Sandy Yannone, the host of Cultivating Voices live poetry on Sundays, is where you may have seen me before. And it's so good to have this amazing, amazing gathering in honor of not only Kim's beautiful accomplishment of publishing her debut collection with Terrapin books, but also in the spirit of having this party, it's really also just a great opportunity for us to get together to celebrate the community of poetry that has been inspired over these past few years. What happens when poets are in conversation with each other and to just share work in the spirit of, as Kim loves to always say, peace, love, and poetry. That's what it's all about today here at Sandy and Kim's big poetry party launch. Kim, I'm going to just chime in and see if you would like to just say a few words before we get this party started.
Just welcome everyone, and thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Sandy, for hosting us and carrying the party along. So grateful.
Very welcome. Folks, before I introduce our first reader, I just want to let you all know we'll be hearing today from Angela Dribben, Michael Anthony Ingram, Janet MacFadyen, Indran Amirthanayagam, Don Krieger, Barbara Quick, and Matt Mooney, and I will throw in a poem for good measure. The format is you'll be hearing a poem from each of these amazing poets and friends, and then Kim's going to share a poem from the Mayapple Forest. A welcome to all of you here joining us for the party, and also a reminder that you also are very, very welcome to put your comments in the chat, party appropriate, of course. Send the love through the chat. We know there's many folks here that are very, very accustomed to being on Zoom, and we know there are some folks joining us today that may not. So please do, we welcome you to participate in the party atmosphere by putting your comments in the chat. I want to just say that there are just a few comments about this collection, the Mayapple Forest. When Cultivating Voices started in May of 2020, I was so amazed to just have Kim come on to the earliest of programs and just stun the audience with these poems of hers that she'd been crafting for many, many years. And I had a number of conversations with her about how excited I would be and wanted to encourage her to continue or to start again to send her manuscript out. And so you can only imagine my utter, utter, utter joy that we are together on this day for this beautiful, beautiful occasion. Gathering together for this, because it has been a book that has waited for many, many years to see the light, to be in the light of day. And you've all, everyone here in this room knows how diligent and persistent and creative Kim is. And this book is a testament to all that is good about why poetry exists. Well, without me gushing too much longer, let's hear the poems. Let's party on with our poets and our poems for today. And we kick off with another poet for whom the very first time I heard Angela Dribben read, I fell over in my chair. And I know that those of you who've had the occasion to hear her poetry long for every moment that you get to hear her poetry. So it seems only appropriate that you, my dear friend, are starting off our beautiful party today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you, Kim, for letting me be here and be a part of this. I'm going to try not to cry because I'm just so happy that your collection is in the world. I mean, you're a thoughtful, careful poet, but the person that you are, that your poetry is in our world, just makes my heart full. It makes me feel like something's right. We were always only ever going to be where we were. Gunmetal gray, strike, fire, whisper after. The fleeing of the flame and its shuddering blues. A map of a drowned town, of dashed roads and memorized distance scales, too short to measure where we were going. A back road, trespassing, overgrown with wild roses, thorned but never bloomed. Pounding piers of the sweat bee quick to ease. Puncture from the blackberry's ragged spine and its fruit sweet and swole. Tangled stars and moonlight lingering long after dawn. Golden dust blown in minutes before a July storm. Halos crowning the horizon of old oaks. And poplars that never live long enough to be old. Bare toes outstretched towards the Moray's rock-clad banks, and the tidy coil of the sun-warmed water moccasin, waiting patiently for tender toes. The murky, studded body of the smallmouth, and the elusive muskie, who has mouthed them all into absence. Thank you.
Wow, Angie. Thank you. Angela Dribben is a gift in my life. I met her through Cultivating Voices Live poetry first. When I first heard her read, I was just blown away by her reading voice, her content, the imagery, the compassion, the energy, the passion. And we have grown to become sisters in poetry. We are part of a group Angie founded, the Virginia Women's Poetry Collective. She helped me with this manuscript before it became what it is now. I'm just so grateful to know her and be lifted up by her poetry. And as you all just heard, she takes you deep into places, the natural world, emotion, and you come out changed with every poem. She has a poem I'm going to connect with today. She has a poem, To Say It Out Loud, that has a wonderful study of squash blooms and gender. And like the poem she just read, it's just rich with natural imagery. And I was thinking about that poem as she was reading the new one that I had never heard before. So that was a gift. So my book begins with a poem called This Kind of Rainfall. And in this case, it's a cucumber blossom that's blaring. And it's a bobwhite calling. If you don't know that bird, it's a type of quail, which lives on the East Coast of the United States. It makes a sound like this. White. And it's dedicated to my mother's memory. And there are many poems exploring my relationship with her and my process of learning to live in a world in which she's just my spirit mother. You know, her physical body's not with me anymore. And, but I feel very connected to her all the time. This kind of rainfall, this kind of rainfall. Rain after rain, sun after rain, the mountain throws its scarf of mist across the valley. Rivulets form, disperse, reform, disperse again. Quietly takes over the hedgerow. You there? You there? A bobwhite gently repeats his question. They say this kind of rainfall, day after day, inch after inch, comes once in 100 years. On the garden fence, cucumbers demonstrate the declarative, gold trumpets blaring. Determination, my mother taught me. The way rock is sanded down by water. The hose handle worn smooth. Keep going. Hat, boots, and gloves wait by the door. Clouds line up at the exit. I'm here. I'm here. The constant, silent ticking of her absence. Sister Angie, love to you.
Thank you, Angie Dribben, and Kim Ports Parsons, for that exquisite first pairing at our poetry launch party here for the Mayapple Forest from Terrapin Books. I want to, before we go to the next reader, I want to share with you, all the epigraph that opens the collection, because I think that it is a call to what draws us to come together in this endeavor of writing through the genre of poetry, and that there's a higher calling to it. And I think that the care that Angie talked about that Kim has infused in the collection You see it on that very, very first page with the epigraph. It's from Joy Harjo's Eagle poem. To pray, you open your whole self to sky, to earth, to sun, to moon, to one whole voice that is you. I think it's that whole voice that I feel from Kim. That is what has continued to open my heart to her poetry, and of course, to my spirit of her as my friend, but to her poetry. Her whole self is in each of these poems, and whenever she shares them. Well, let us move on to our next reader. It wouldn't be a party without some quintessential listening and some quintessential poetry. And that, of course, is who we have with us next, the quintessentialist of the quintessential, Dr. Uncle Anthony Ingram. Welcome, welcome to the party, my friend.
Thank you very much. Kim, in my opinion, you epitomize what poetry should be about. I felt that from the very moment I met you. So there's something special about Kim. I just want you to know how much I appreciate you, and congratulations on your book. When I read the book, I felt that your mother was with you. She was in every line, every verse, and it was a wonderful feeling to know that. I don't know, I just knew it. So I'd like to share a poem about a mother's love as well. I wrote this piece over 25 years ago about my own mother. But I think the message is universal, and I dedicate it to you, Kim. The title of the poem is Shelling Beans. In a small southern town, not too far from the one that you no longer claim, I recently visited my mama. I needed to get away from the maddening crowd, the boastful talking aloud. I am no longer what I once was. I left that back just because. I needed to see her face, behold, the originator of a race. I needed to let my mama know that her son was truly going to go see in the grand scheme of life. Mine was clearly without strife. It overcome small town mentality, embrace big city formality. I was a giant among men, the greed and all too big to fall. I wanted to let my mama know it had become all that and more. In the kitchen, there she sat. Big, beautiful, black-haired, fat spine from ear to ear. Her baby was home too long that he'd been gone. God just doesn't come. Oh, cousin, that she stickered. See, some of her boys were in jail, so jealousy all the time flickered. Mama, in a loud voice, I proclaimed, for you, the world I've tamed. I'm bigger than big, bolder than bold. When I walk, my ways paved with silver and gold. So ask me, Mama, about my places I've seen. You need some money? Hey, my pockets are filled with green. Come, son, she said, in a voice both nice and sweet. Come sit here at the table and help your old mama while she's still able. Child, what a day I've seen. Grab that sack and help shell these beans. Mama said, with an incredulous voice, I came here by choice. I've been out walking with kings and queens. I don't remember anything about shelling beans. You see, shelling beans is for the common man. I gave that up when I left the land. So ask me, Mama, about my plate of riches. You need a new dress. I'll buy you a laid with gold stitches. She looked at me in her wise old way. Although I did not know exactly what she would say, I knew it would contain the wisdom of the ages, since she lived a good life. Therefore, her life book was full of pages. She said, son, don't you ever forget, no matter how big you get, that life's about more than being able to walk with kings and queens. Life's about remembering how to do the common simple things like shelling beans. You see, shelling beans is a time-honored task. And if you don't remember how, then I should have never asked. For it means that you've forgotten that true wealth comes from the fruit of the earth, from any place else. What is its real worth? My son, tell me your story. Is it only of the riches and the glory, or is it also about remembering how to do the common and simple things like shelling beans in addition to all that you see? Mama said, in a shepherd's voice that trembled, but not by choice. I do remember. So I grabbed that sack and helped shell those beans. We shelled one on like ours, it seemed. But on that day, I did not mind shelling beans because I shelled them at the feet of a queen. So Kim, I think you shell beans all the time. You treat people like they're supposed to be treated. And I love it. That's one of the things that I admire about you. So congratulations on your new book. All right.
Oh, Michael, thank you so much. That was so fabulous. I love that poem and I love the way you read, and I'm so grateful for you to be here, part of the party. I can't imagine a better ingredient in our party than those beans. And your mama's good sense.
Yeah.
Oh, thank God for our mother's good sense, right? Well, there's a lot of poems in this book that take place in the kitchen. And that makes me think I should read one of those, huh, Michael? Before I do, I want to say I met Michael through first Cultivating Voices and then through Quintessential Listening, his amazing poetry online radio. And it is a joy to hear you read and perform your work. There's so much passion in life and so much truth telling. And I'm thinking of you read a poem for us on Cultivating Voices this past summer in celebration of Juneteenth, and called a case of domestic violence. And I thought, this should be like required reading for the entire planet. I just love your work. Thank you so much for being here. And let's carry on with Mamas in the Kitchen. I think I'll read a poem called The Poetry of Pie. Sandy likes this poem. And I wish I could give you all some pie right now. But we'll just have to go there virtually. The Poetry of Pie. The recipe card is brown and yellow and blurred. Touchstone, fingered over and over. Smeary conversations with the memorized words. Written when I was still practicing how to form an A or an O, to loop or still undecided across lined paper. A bowl of peaches, warm as wool blankets from the July air, newspaper spread under the tin bowl, Coriolis of thumb and knife against skin, the peels collapsed in a pile, juice crying down my arm, the slices repeating the sunrise. The old cutter works the crumbs, ice clinks against the spoon, the pastry comes together. From the kitchen of Jeanette, I dutifully inscribed, sitting next to her at the brown formica table, her elbows floury, fruity splatters on her apron's front, showing me when the peach is truly ripe, the skin will pull completely away in sheets, revealing the perfect yellow, glistening joy of the flesh. Sugar, but not too much. Cinnamon and nutmeg, generously sprinkled, a pinch of salt, tapioca granules like snow, duration in minutes, the smell, the shuttlecock of the pin as it rolls back and forth, center to edge, this way, that, till there is more than enough to meet the needs of the pan, the crockery one with the chipped rim, then the dough gently knuckled into the base, trimmed, fluted, filled to a mound. Always I forget, then drop dabs of butter with crusty hands, weave the top, hiding the under the protective arms of the lattice. She only perspired on the left side of her face and used her apron's hem to dab her brow, not to get flour in her hair, to keep going, the baking, the washing up, the fraying hot pads on the vinyl, the white cabinets wiped down, a car pulling in the driveway. Sliced tomatoes marching down an oval platter, clothes brought in from the line. Just a summer day, the evening cooling, likely bad news on the TV, likely storms tomorrow, likely sisters in a squabble, combing out knots to canned laughter after dark. But silence in the room when the slices are served and the peaches and crust intoxicate our tongues, and we all look down and chew and lift our forks again and lick our lips until finally someone says, everyone got very quiet. When I sit tonight on my back porch and share the day's pie with my husband, I will tell him this. We will take in each bite like a tender gift. We will miss her. That's for my mama, like the whole book. Thank you, Michael. How they nourished us, how they nourished us.
Oh, I am so glad that a poem that someone inspired, or that one of our poet friends today reading, this one happened to be Michael Anthony Ingram, inspired you to read this poem, The Poetry of Pie. I would actually put forth that I think this is a poem that should be taught and read everywhere also, because of just the way that it is completely put together, like a perfect recipe. I mean, I look at I'm reading along, and which I don't always do. I really want to encourage folks, you've heard the poem, but to see the poem and to see the care with which this poem was put together, it truly, truly is what the last line says. Each bite, each word is a tender gift. And I feel that so much in this collection. So many of, if you look at the titles of many of the poems in here, you also are getting an overarch of the themes here. It's a poem called Blessing, A Lesson in Joy. And I feel that they're so representative of everything that is Kim, and of course is this collection, the Mayapple Forest. Well, let us move to another beloved poetry in our community here. I'm so grateful also to be able to welcome to our party today from Slate Roof Press, and many, many other endeavors. The magnificent Janet MacFadyen.
Oh gosh, I am so excited. And so, I have been with Cultivating Voices since almost the beginning, and I've always seen Kim. And then I remember just being astonished to hear your poetry and thought there's such a humaneness and compassion and graciousness and the sense of the land and the animals and the animacy of nature and our deep connection to it and the sense of deep time and loss. And so I had this poem picked out that I thought, this is just the poem I need to read. And then Michael read this poem about the kitchen, which led to Kim reading about the poem in the kitchen. And my poem takes place in the kitchen. So I wasn't going to, I better read something different. And then I thought, well, no, that's what this is about. This is a conversation. And so I'm going to read, it's called, some of you have heard this anyway. After everything, we sit down and eat. And I give thanks to Joy Harjo because I took a line from her. We gather in the kitchen where mothers are stirring the black pot with its red eye. They stir the thick broth, the remembrances, with wooden spoons like oars, all of us huddled together in the boat. No matter what, we will sit down with each other and eat. My mother and father stand somewhere behind, their slight tug on the tablecloth, unsettling glasses and bowls, time's warp sticking to shirt sleeves like lint. Those who have moved on are tugging, do you remember? Do you remember? At those of us still expecting a feast. The conversation wefts between brother and sister, husband and neighbor, holding this grace of stitchery together like a stitchery. No matter what, we are bound to the present by stories, the ones that always begin. Remember when she ate the caterpillar? Remember the night the oven died? And where the fabric is rent, we darn and embroider with flourish. My father stitches his sailcloth, my mother her shawl. They are weaving something precious together for us seated here in the flowing, a dark silk or the pool of a meandering river, this sacred water we stir and look deeply into like a mirror. We taste and grieve. Thank you.
Oh, Janet, that's so wonderful. I love that poem so much. And you know what? When you said that about carrying on the conversation about the kitchen, you're all going to have to forgive me, but I'm going to come on in my kitchen, 'cause it's going to be raining. Right? Does anybody else know that? So I'm staying in the kitchen after that poem. I'm staying in the kitchen at least for one more. And Janet, the first time I heard you read, I was so blown away. I thought, oh my gosh, the clarity, the insightfulness, the perceptiveness, there's poems, of yours where I just it's like chills go up and down, as I think, wow, your ability to listen and watch and feel the natural world and reveal such amazing things about our human experiences that that come to you through that observing and that feeling. And your work is amazing, and I'm just so incredibly grateful for your kindness and support about my book and for being such an inspiration. And before I read anything else, I want to say that I chose this format because community has been the fuel for me the last couple of years. I mean, and I thought I want to celebrate in community because that's how I got here. And And so I just thank you all. I thank you all. I wish we could just, all of us read forever, but that time does not allow. Time and, life does not allow. So let me also real quickly say thank you to Diane Lockwood and Terrapin Books for believing in this manuscript and bringing it to fruition, and for the amazing artist Frances Coates, whose painting you're looking at. Her painting is called Mayapples, and she is a local artist here in Virginia. And I stumbled upon her painting in a gallery when I was just about finished the title poem, not quite finished. I worked on it a very long time, and I was just gobsmacked. I looked up at the wall, and here was this painter who painted what I had been walking around visualizing. I'm crazy about all plants, but sometimes a particular plant really inspires me. And Mayapples are common to the woods behind my house and all up and down the East Coast. And they go through a life cycle out of the forest floor every spring, and they bloom in May. And then somewhere around midsummer, they bear a fruit, which if you pick it exactly at the right time, when it's perfectly ripe, you can very, very carefully make jam from it or jelly from it. But if you're not careful, you can get quite sick because they're poisonous otherwise. Only that perfectly ripe fruit handled a certain way is edible. So this poem is called Mayapple Jelly. So it's another kitchen poem. Mayapple Jelly. Despite the name, there's no fruit in May. It ripens, mellow and rare, under July's ragged umbrella. You need 2 cups, pectin, sugar, and lemon. Stir the honey guava, simmering yellow. Strain away the poison of the pulp, seeds, and skin. Taste the singular fruit, sweet and sour, thickened by pectin. Consider its names: raccoonberry, ground apple, wild mandrake. Strain life's poisons. It's finished when you skim a spoon and 2 distinct drops run together, sheeting from a plate. Consider ways to name the pain: heart's mandrake, label and shelve. Some days, small spoonfuls are cathartic. When a life drops, edges scrape like tectonic plates. Mayapple roots grow underground in winter, their poison cytostatic, meaning cells that won't divide. Shelve your losses. Taste spoonfuls in remembrance. Wait for the sweetness. Memory's calf. Mothers may teach daughters how to smooth edges, how to placate pain, how to keen a song of naming, how loss ripens the self. Thank you, Janet. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
I'm licking every spoon I can here. I've got my wooden spoon now, and all the party props coming out. What I want to just say is, as it's been amazing to watch and witness and experience this poetry party evolving, the conversation, the ways that the poems are speaking to and with and against each other, and for all of you in the audience, this is a truly organic experience. Kim has not known what each of the poets is going to read, and she's choosing the poems as she's going along. And it's an exquisite tapestry so far. I almost wish that every reading was like this. And we all go to a lot of readings. I'm loving this. Thank you so much, Janet. Thank you, Kim. I will endeavor to continue to move us along. And how fortunate am I today to get to just say the names and welcome each of these poets. Our next poet is Indran Amirthanayagam, and there is no greater citizen in poetry than this exquisite human being sitting before us. And I'm so glad to have you join our party today and share in the connection and humanity of the work.
Oh my, thank you so much, Sandy. Thank you, Kim. Kim, what an exquisite book this is. What a voice, what a gifted poet you are. Really, really. I mean, if I was jealous, I would just hang up my hat, or I would go and write novels or something, because maybe that's the way. No, I mean, it's just lovely, lovely. And I love the conversation around on food on the kitchen table, and the conversation with mother and mother's spirit hanging in every line. I love that comment you made, Michael, about mother in every line, in every verse. I live with my mother, and she was frail, and I think of her often, and so inevitably we all live with our mothers in some form or another, whether they enter our verses or not, and our fathers. And I will read a poem I translated from Manuel Ulacia, this new book, Origami for a Rainy Day, Origami, Selected Poems of Manuel Ulacia. And it's about food, and it's called La Cena. I'll read the Spanish, and it's not a long poem, and then I'll read the English. Incendiados los azules en constante movimiento, chocan, pactan y se licuan. Todavía un sol naranja ilumina la terraza, el albero del camino, las copas de los cipreses, la ciudad en la hondanada, blanca marea de luces que crece, mientras la noche hace más espeso el bosque. Alrededor de la mesa los amigos cenan, hablan, asisten a doble fiesta, la que ocurre allá en la bóveda, celeste coreografía en la que el día se fuga y la que el diálogo crea. Entre el silencio de dos palabras un grillo canta, emanación de una estrella que a lo lejos centellea. Otra luz brilla en los ojos de los que oyen y contemplan. Eco del eco del eco. La estrella, el canto y la llama. Se escribe solo el poema. Supper. The blues on fire, moving constantly, crash, agree and liquefy. An orange sun still lights the terrace, the clay of the road, the cypress cups, the city below in a hollow valley. A white tide of lights that grows while the night thickens the wood. Around the table, friends eat and talk, attend a double feast, one that occurs up there in the firmament, celestial choreography in which the day flees and which the dialogue creates. In the silence between two words, a cricket sings. The emanation of a star sparkles far away. Another light shines in the eyes of those who hear and contemplate. echo of the echo of an echo, star, song, and flame. Only the poem writes itself. For you, Kim, only your poems write themselves. Thank you.
Absolutely gorgeous, Indran. Thank you so much. You know, I'm a fan. I'm such a fan of your work, and I was introduced to it through Cultivating Voices. And since then, you know, I've gotten more of your collections, and I have watched you support and promote poets and poetry all over the world and be such an amazing citizen in your poetry, promoting all the things that are important to me anyway: love, truth, justice, kindness, compassion, generosity, equality. I mean, you're an amazing poetry citizen, and it's such a gift to have you here with me today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm just like, wow, I want to sit with that poem for a while. That was so beautiful. Both languages too. I think I'll read a poem about, you know, carrying on regardless, sort of just carrying on, right? This is a poem doing the simple things in life, you know, to just keep it going regardless of what's happening. And this is a poem that came out of reflecting on that when we were all so isolated from each other during the pandemic. But really, you know, thinking about it, it's kind of true as the world just continues to throw one more catastrophe on top of us day after day. Every type, citizen, you know, from political to environmental, whatever, and we carry on. So this is called Time to Carry. I can't recall the date, can only guess the hour, but it's time to get up and walk the dog and put the seed out for the birds whose feathers know it's time to fade and hide among the undressing hedges. I'm not sure whether it's Monday or Tuesday or Sunday, but it's cool this morning. Time to move sweaters up on the shelves. Time to find another glove before we sink our feet into the frosty dew and sniff the sunrise later each morning, more orange, lower on the horizon as day ascends. It's time to walk, then sip coffee, then read the news, then despair again of emperors and their antics, push through and begin the morning's work, clearing dead vines, deadheading the fading metaphors. The gift of plague and separation are silence and space and time, not calendars, not plots on a line, but to be alive, to breathe, to wake, to hear the owls call, the coyotes as they hunt and cry, to look up and see the heron pass, to look down and feel the cat brush my leg. I imagine children climbing trees. I mow the grass when it grows long. Then it's time to scrub the floor on bended knees, time to cook the sauce, the fruit is ripe. Now it's time to wake, now time to sleep. Take this pail of water to the field, the wooden handle cutting deep. The millions more sickening, millions dead, number on the grind. I do not know the time. This is the plague's gift, to live, to carry this grief, the slowing of each step. Thank you, Indran, so much.
As with you, Kim, I would just like to sit with every single one of these poems. The depth, the contemplation that they require, which is why I really love the pairing of we get to listen, and then if we're fortunate enough, we can have the collection to refer and be in conversation with each poem further. And what it's reminding me of so much, Janet mentioned this, the idea of deep time that is truly, truly embedded in every single one of your poems. That there's a deceptive simplicity to how you bring an image in front of us, an object, an idea, and continue to kind of layer and layer and layer. And then I'm reminded, I get filled, there's a tipping point for me where I recognize all the complexity in the simple. How actually deep everything is under the waterlines of each of these poems in this collection. Thank you for those lessons. Our next reader is a person that I'm sure every single person in the room, if you have participated in Cultivating Voices, live poetry, you are familiar with Don Krieger and Don Krieger's amazing, amazing work. I will say this. Cultivating Voices live poetry to me now is like a milking stool. It's got the 3 legs, and without the strength of the leg of Don Krieger, the leg of Kim Ports Parsons, and the platform would not have a leg to stand on. I am grateful for your poetry and your contributions to poetry. Thank you for being at the party. I knew you would be in the background at the party, but thank you for coming to read at the party.
Thanks, Sandy. And thanks, Kim, for inviting me to read. It's an honor. And I'm very happy to be part of this in any way. I got the book some time ago, and I don't read very many books, but I've read this one. It's very easy to read and very good. I could find almost no faults. Anyway, I was inspired actually to add some images to one of my poems. Let me just show it to you. And to read this one, naturalistic themes are really not much in my work, except in the images the photos that I add. Our shared humanities. Nothing is deadlier, dogma, so beautiful, courage, riskier, faith, seductive, privilege, more noble and just, war, more profane, indifference, crueler, God, no greater truth, kindness, nor greater lie, color, nothing more human, discovery. That's our shared humanities.
It's fantastic, Don. Are you going to share the short one you shared with me?
No, that's
No?
not.
Okay. Well, I didn't want to
Unless you
cut you
want,
off.
if
Yes,
you want me to,
I
I'm
do.
happy to.
I do. Don has one more short one that he in conversation earlier this week said, maybe I'll share this. And I said, oh, please do. So please do.
Okay. All right, let me find it. I apologize.
No, take your time and I'll say nice things while you're looking.
Okay.
Don and I became friends and colleagues really in this project through Sandy, and he is so generous with his help to so many poetry groups all over the world. And once we were talking about that and I was complimenting him and he said, you know, it's something simple I can give. I can listen. I can be present and I can listen. And I can make it possible through his tech support to have many people get to share who maybe aren't often heard in this kind of a format. And it's just quintessential, Don, borrowing the word back from Michael. It's such a generosity of spirit. And I'm grateful you're part of this today, Don. And your truth telling, I learn something new from you every time you share a poem.
They ran on the sidewalk. She looked at me, turned, hopped ahead, turned back, jumped into the grass. Then she lunged up, snatched a dragonfly right out of the air.
It's so great. It's like an extended haiku. I love it. Well, there's a poem I wrote for my husband, and I read it on, I don't know, somewhere on Cultivating Voices, and I said, Don, I think I might have read this before. And he said, oh, you can read it every week. I said, so even when I didn't know what you were going to read, I was like, oh, I think I'll read that poem because it's about how my husband is just this quietly generous person all the time. And it's a gift in my life. And he's really taught me about how love becomes wiser as you get older, and you, at least in my situation, it can. And so this is called Love, comma, Birds. And it's about the simple ways, you know, that he shows his generosity and how different that is from the the drama and trauma of love that I experienced earlier in my life. Love, birds. Despite their best efforts, a pair of young bluebirds aren't succeeding with their first nest. They've chosen a house you built for others, a kind of phoebes and song sparrows. Only 3 sides, an open floor, a slanting roof, a space exposed. So each beginning is easily dismissed by wind. My early love affairs were like that. But oh, that swoon of blue. She gathers dry grasses. He stands guard on the barbecue. Hers is a cup of hope, possibility, so fragile. It never fails to make me smile when a male cardinal at the feeder delivers a seed to the female with what appears to be a kiss. So I should greet you each day. What good does it do to chastise ourselves as years pass for our lack of bright feathers? Perhaps my memory fails me, but wasn't it a barred owl we heard that first weekend we spent making love? I recall starting a poem, a love note really, about calling out for my heart's desire. Each night this June, we hear the whippoorwill, insistent, tireless, randy. Sometimes he is so loud we have to close the windows to sleep. When we wake, serve my body in gratitude and feather my fingers through yours. I suggest that perhaps you could attach a small addition to the platform, like an arm to hold in the nest. It would be easy to cut a piece of scrap and tack it on. Sure, you say, and go out to your wood shop and get to work. For my dear husband, Doug. Thank you so much, Don.
Just because it's behind me, I will, because it's always behind me up here in my display. Discovery, Don Krieger, and our shared humanities. When I first heard that poem, Don read it to me after one of our readings, and we were just the two of us. And I'll never forget hearing the poem for the first time, because it made me weep, actually. Like the humanity of that poetry. And what I appreciate, of course, is how we've, through the intricacies of meeting in these little squares, have continued to meet poets and people that share our humanity together. Then that's what this gathering, this conversation has exemplified today. Poet after poet after poet, poem after poem after poem. And in that spirit, we move to our next just beautiful human being. I love her poetry, and also please do check out the bios, because there's so much more about each of these amazing human beings today, and you'll learn about the incredible other endeavors of the absolute joy to have here today, Barbara Quick.
Sandy, Kim, all of you, and all the poets who have read, I am undone. I'm not someone who grew up going to places of worship. Nature became my place of worship. But today, I feel that I'm in a place of worship. And I hope I can read a poem. Each poem has moved me so much. And I'm sorry, I'm not agile enough somehow to write things in the chat while I'm listening. But all of you, your work is so deep and beautiful. And I feel that my nervous system has undergone a reset here. Thank you. So wonderful. And I've been going back and forth about which poem to read because every poem I've heard has inspired, thinking, oh, well, this one, that one. So I'm not sure, but I think I'm going to read a poem that I wrote this year called Mirror for the Wind. To minister to the earth in gratitude for what it gives to me, bucket by bucket of water collected from the outdoor shower, delivered to my netted row of blueberries. I'm Clara Barton to the plants in my drought-stricken garden. What the trees and leaves are to the wind, just so poets are moved by spirits that would otherwise be unheard, word by channeled word. Without the wind, the trees would never sway, and not a single leaf would shimmer. The wind is only seen by way of what it acts upon. Poets sing the songs they overhear, telegraphed by every living thing. Give water to a thirsty plant and hear it drink. Watch slowly, and you'll see foliage flush with color and a new leaf unfurl, topped by a crystalline drop of the stuff of life. I am not a woman or a wife, but a future tree, mirror for the wind. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Barbara. Oh, it's so beautiful, so beautiful. Telegraph, for every living thing. So beautiful. Thank you so much. And gardens, I met Barbara through Cultivating Voices Live Poetry, but then I started to read her novels, like her beautiful new novel that's come out this year, What Disappears, and the poems in her chapbook, The Light on Sifnos, just are gorgeous, tender, crystalline. And so I'm very, very grateful for you, Barbara, and for reading. And the wind, well, that reminds me of a poem I wrote. And in fact, it's so, in some ways, this is so interesting. This poem is titled after His poem with the famous line, "Hope is the thing with feathers." Hope is the thing with feathers, and I'll turn to that one. It was the first poem I had published in this recent period in my life as I returned to writing and sharing publicly. I had kind of set public sharing aside for many, many years. And this is a song about finding your voice and singing against the odds, against the wind, right? Hope is the thing with feathers. The starling jumps down into the hole, bits of brown clutched in her yellow beak. The cheeping from below is an echo of yearning. Once a summer storm yanked this trunk. Hidden in the tangled growth, a wound becomes a refuge. The gutters this side of the roof, so long neglected, sprout seedlings which lean into the white rail and wave. Ladies at a balustrade, passengers about to embark on a doomed ship. This balcony floats, tethered among the branches. sails of leaf printed silk, inhale and exhale, sunlight over shadow. No one loves a starling, yet she weathers the swales. Such a bird each spring commandeers the heart. She prepares a nest and ties it fast, wants to set sail, to fling caution to the wind. She perches on the mast, and with rusty clicks and old tin whistles, she starts to sing. Keep singing, everybody. Thank you so much, Barbara, for your beautiful sharing. Thank you.
What incredible songs we are casting into the wind today. Barbara, if you had any hesitation about thinking that that poem would not lift everyone up, I am here to say, rising tide lifts all boats, and you just lifted all the boats. You just lifted all the boats with that poem. Thank you so much. And